Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Or as we like to call it, the can't have just one deal. Mix and match a sausage biscuit, sausage McGriddles, McChicken biscuit, chicken McGriddles, or crispy hash browns. Want 2 sausage biscuits? Buy one, get one for $1. Want a sausage biscuit and hash browns? That's cool too. Choose more of what you love. Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
And thank you very much. All right, moving on here. Let me just write that down. And I'm running out of time, I know. But that's okay. We'll move on here. Nicola, good to see you. Boom! Gorgeous Bama, thanks for coming on in. Roki TM, welcome to SOR Chat. Gorgeous Jenny, thanks for coming on in. We love you around here. And Michael Darling, good to see you. And I know we're running out of time. Allison Yellowknee, much love, my friend. And thank you so much for that super chat. And we got like 10 seconds. Can we make it through? I don't know. Gary Voorhees, thank you for joining us, man. Appreciate your love. All right, people, it's time to rock. Horns up. Let's do it. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. You have a plethora of features to show you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show for you tonight. Victor Viggiani from Zealand Communications talks about the breaking Canadian UFO news tonight. Then in hour 3, we go to the swamp for Swamp Dweller's latest story. John Hudson is here for the UFO report. Shirky Poo's got the news. We got the thought of the day as well, but we're going to get right into it. Victor Viggiani is the news director of Zealand Communications based out of Toronto, Ontario. He's an international news service. He's study of anomalous aerial phenomena research and analysis of extraterrestrial issues spans over 3 decades. His experience involves UFO sightings, report investigation, academic radio journalism, and a primary focus on UFO ET government disclosure. This man has been there, done that. He has been pushing Canadian media and Canadian politicians alike to try and bring the UFO story. And we have some major news on this tonight that we could probably talk about 6-7 hours on, but we got Victor Viggiani. Thank you so much for coming on short notice here on Spaced Out Radio to do this, Victor.
Well, it's great to be with you, David. It's a very special night. There's when I got your phone call, I just about swiveled in my chair 10 times before I was able to digest everything that you're saying about this breaking news that we'll describe in a few minutes. It's an absolutely phenomenal situation that's going on, and I just have a feeling that it's going to go even a lot further than you and I can calibrate at this particular point in time.
Well, you know what? I have talked to a number of people tonight regarding this story, and before we tell you who I talked to, I wanted to let our public know what has happened here. All right? Now, a lot of our audience is American. They don't really understand how Canadian politics works. It is much different in the parliamentary system than it is in the congressional system that the United States has. And up here, our member of parliament, which would be like a congressperson down in the U.S., his name is Larry Maguire. He is out of Manitoba. and he approached, and we're going to play a video of this a little bit later on, he approached one of the committees, the standing committees in Ottawa, and all of those are videotaped. And Larry has literally asked the UAP question for the first time in modern Canadian history. And the question was to the people who run Canada's nuclear facilities. Victor, I'm going to let you break this down a little bit of what happened here.
Well, it's great that the fact that the parliamentary system up here in Canada is so very different than some of the viewers that are watching us now from the United States. The parliamentary system up here is based on the British model, and what we do is we elect members of parliament. And unlike the United States, there are multiple parties. In the United States, there are two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and then you have the Senate. In Canada, what we have is two dominant parties, the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party. And there's also the New Democratic Party and one or two other sort of fringe parties. Each of them have a number of representations in Parliament. I think there's some 300 seats in Parliament. And the Liberal Party right now is the party that has the most seats. And the Prime Minister of that party is Justin Trudeau. He's the leader of that party. Now, within that structure, they all sit in the House of Commons. You could probably relate that to the Congress, the House of Representatives in the United States. But it's a gathering of all the parties at once. And in order to have any kind of legislation passed or anything happening, you have to have the support of the dominant party, which right now is the Liberal Party. Or if we have a minority government, he has to call upon other parties to support him. So it's a very, very different and very sensitive system that reflects the multiplicity of the Canadian society that we live in here, up here in Canada. So that's important. And within all of that, you have the Canadian Senate, which is totally different than the American Senate. The Senate in the United States, they're elected, much like the House of Representatives are. Our Senate is appointed by the Prime Minister. And I don't know exactly how many seats are in the Senate, but they are parallel body similar to the House of Lords in the British Parliament, and they are an appointed body. They are not elected. So there's two separate entities: the House of Commons and the Senate. And we can get into all of the specificities of those later on if you want. But that's the kind of juxtaposition of the two-party system in the United States against how we operate here in Canada with the Parliament. Now, what you're talking about is a committee within the House of Commons, and that committee is the Committee on Natural Resources, and it is chaired by Larry Maguire. He is the vice chair of that committee. Now, what happened was, from my reading and my listening to the video that you're going to play later on, is that he, the vice chair, Larry Maguire, who is a member of Parliament from Manitoba, one of Canada's provinces, he was throwing questions at the deputy minister of that particular natural resources party, or let's put it this way, a ministry within the Canadian government. And his name is John Hannaford. And that deputy prime minister or deputy minister is answering questions from Larry Maguire, who is the chair of the Natural Resources, the vice chair of the Natural Resources Committee. He's representing the House of Commons. And when he starts asking the questions, and I think I'm not sure when you're going to play it, but the deputy minister had very, very few answers. He did not understand at all, first of all, what the acronym UAP was. He did not understand at all what the legislation that has been passed in the United States was all about. He had absolutely no answers for the MP, the vice chair, Larry Maguire, who's obviously very, very up to speed with this information. So that's kind of an overview of what happened, and we can get into it a little bit more if you want.
Well, why don't we play the video right now, and that way
all of
our
great.
people can hear it here. I'm just going to mute you and mute me, so that way audio will come through clean, and here we go.
Some funds been put forward from the Department of Defense to various organizations in the Canadian Safety and Security Program. And with the supplementary estimates, there's, as I mentioned, the D&D for Canadian Safety and Security Program. So in January, the Swedish Security Program Service announced an investigation of drones at 3 of their nuclear power plants. They have also been reports over the years of other unknown drone-type flying objects flying over Canadian nuclear facilities. In the security that we're in today, and it's been recently announced in the United States, legislation has just passed in their National Defense Authorization Act, for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to report the, quote, number of incidents and descriptions thereof of unidentified aerial phenomena or drones of unknown origin association with nuclear power generation stations, nuclear fuel storage sites, or facilities regulated by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, end quote. So I'm just wondering if any of the department officials are aware of the legislation that was just passed in the U.S. Congress regarding these specific clauses.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the question. I must admit I am not familiar with that. I can say, however, that overall security of our nuclear facilities is obviously something that's of extraordinary importance, including through the regulators' functions.
Thanks. I'll send you the information. We'll make it available to you. And have you received reports on these drones or unidentified aerial phenomena near Canadian nuclear facilities?
I have not.
So I guess, can you ask your officials to inquire and report back to the committee in writing anything they know about them?
We can do so.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. And are reports of violations reported in and around nuclear facilities publicly disclosed?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Perhaps I could turn to one of my colleagues who is more directly responsible for nuclear. Molly Johnson may have more detailed information with respect to that question. Molly?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would say that the security and safety and security is, of course, one of the top priorities, and we're considering nuclear. We can check and confirm on the drone issue specifically and the reporting that's available and get back to you.
With its allies, with partners of the United States, as appropriate to better assess the nature and extent of unidentified aerial phenomena. I believe it would be prudent for the Atomic Energy of Canada to proactively reach out to their American counterparts to discuss this legislation and to inquire how they are handling these reports and investigations. Would you be open to reaching out to the American Nuclear Regulatory Commission to start this important conversation?
I certainly take that under advisement.
All right. That is absolutely amazing that this came out of Ottawa today. I mean, Victor Viggiani from Z-Line Communications, we have never heard of UAP visiting and hovering over nuclear facilities in Canada. And Larry Maguire, the MP from Manitoba, stating that this has happened 3 times that he knows of.
At least 3 times, yeah. I think before we get into the discussion about this, which there's so much to talk about, David, I think our listeners, particularly our Canadian listeners, as well as our American friends, I want to frame this in a way that I don't want to be overly dramatic about it. But that last, how long was that video? 3 or 4 minutes, whatever it was.
3 or 4 minutes.
That video, that's right. That video from within the Canadian Parliament, an actual video of a member of Parliament who's the vice chair of a committee who's responsible for natural resources, questioning the deputy minister of natural resources, okay? And that's a huge department. That's like the Secretary of Defense in the United States. He's questioning that individual, the deputy minister, about UAP. That is absolutely historical. And I want listeners in the United States and Canada, and anybody else who's listening, throughout the world, to recognize that we just witnessed Canadian history in the making, because never before has the Canadian government ever addressed the issue of UFOs or the new acronym UAP. So this is actual history in the making, and it is just a kernel or a seed of information that is going to flower or bloom depending on how Mr. Maguire, the MP, handles what the response might be from the deputy minister and the assistant deputy minister, Molly Johnson. So these 2 individuals are going to be reporting back to the vice chair of the committee, the Standing Committee on Natural Resources. He has asked them to report back to them about not only the UAP that you alluded to, David, 3 or more instances of it, about that, but he's also going to be asking the deputy minister, and this is big, this is huge, to communicate with the American nuclear authorities about their experiences with UAP hovering over nuclear installations. And let me make something very clear and distinct here. In the United States, the information that we have is that these UAP, according to people like Captain Robert Salas, who was in a bunker and getting information from his top people, UFOs hovering over ICBM installations. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, that happened. Okay, and that was something that Bob Salas talks about quite a bit. What the difference here is, we do not have any ICBM missiles in silos here in Canada. We do not have nuclear weapons of any kind. We do not possess that kind of technology or those kinds of weapons. We've chosen not to do it historically. However, but what we do have is nuclear facilities, that is energy facilities that produce energy. My estimation is 30 to 40% of Canada's energy is actually produced by nuclear fusion. Okay, so it's important to understand that these are not ICBM missile silos that are being overflown by UAP. These are simply, or even more complexly, nuclear facilities in which energy is produced. And we know that throughout the world, in the UK, in other parts of Europe, UAPs have actually flown over nuclear facilities that have nuclear weapons in them. It's simply just nuclear fission plants that produce power for Canada. So there's a big difference here. So I need to point that out. This is not like they're shutting down our nuclear missiles, because we don't have any. So the reason this is important is because it falls into the whole category of what these UAP have in terms of interest with respect to our nuclear capabilities, be it energy or weapons. And this solidifies the fact that whoever these UAP are, whoever's piloting these UAP, are definitely interested in our nuclear capabilities and want to know more about it. And if you want to know more about that, you have to listen to Captain Robert Salas talk about it, but we can get into that later if you want. So I thought I'd make a few of those distinctions before we go on.
I also want to say a big thank you to Daniel Otis, freelance journalist, and he's a writing contributor for Vice Magazine, for posting that on his YouTube channel and allowing us and giving us permission to play that video. And, you know, Daniel, him and I have been in contact, and I want people to know something here, because we're going to go a little bit behind the scenes of how this story came out. All right. A couple of years ago, I was reached out to by a source from Ottawa, our nation's capital, asking me about Canada's role in UFOs. I pointed them into the direction of a few people, including Victor, and I mentioned your name, Victor, and I mentioned Grant Cameron and Chris Rutkowski and a number of others that I thought would be good people to talk to. But on a journalism side, we talked over months on how to get this story out. And they were waiting, and I remember this person telling me point blank, and I will not give up his or her name, that we needed to be able to get this to the media. We needed an opening to get it into some line of questioning that it could come out. And we now know Larry Maguire, the MP, was involved in that conversation. I knew 2 years ago, but I can't say anything because it's not public. I was held to source. And this is the reason why, people, it is very important to hold your sources and hold that information until it is proper time to come out. So when you're bashing Lou Elizondo, or you're bashing Chris Mellon, or you're bashing the American government, or the journalists who are saying, sources tell me this, like Tim McMillan, or other journalists, George Knapp, who are trying to get this information out, it has to come out in time in a proper accordance. Okay, so I knew that something was going to be coming. And now this is how it played out. I talked to my source a couple weeks ago, and I was tipped off to something. Okay, I have a couple sources now in Ottawa, and Daniel Otis and I got together about 8 months ago, and I knew something big was coming. I knew it. I knew there was a major conversation that had happened between many MPs and certain people in the UFO community that I cannot name at this time. And I went to all different types of media. I contacted Maclean's Magazine, talked to their assistant editor who had written a UFO story. And she said, let me get back to you. Never did. I talked to radio stations from CKNW in Vancouver to radio stations around Toronto. They had no interest. I talked to reporters and emailed reporters at the Toronto Star and other major newspapers across Canada with no return on information. Daniel Otis then came out of nowhere writing about Canadian UFOs for Vice magazine. I reached out to Daniel and I said, Daniel, I got some information for you. And if we can work something out here, I am willing to share my sources. And we worked something out, nothing financially, okay, nothing financially, but just high-quality journalistic deals that you make. And Daniel said, not a problem, and I gave him my sources. My sources earlier today, or our sources now, pardon me, tipped off Daniel to this information, that MP Maguire, Member of Parliament Maguire, was going to be talking about this in front of the Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Daniel broke it at around 6:30 this evening, Pacific time, and now this has taken off. I have talked to Grant Cameron about it. I've talked to Victor Viggiani about it. I have talked with Chris Rutkowski, who has stated on Twitter that, and you can follow it all on UFO Twitter, that
Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Or as we like to call it, the can't have just one deal. Mix and match a sausage biscuit, sausage McGriddles, McChicken biscuit, chicken McGriddles, or crispy hash browns. Want 2 sausage biscuits? Buy one, get one for $1. Want a sausage biscuit and hash browns? That's cool too. Choose more of what you love. Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
He has had a couple of members of Parliament reach out to him about the UAP subject very recently. I have been reached out to, but you can't let the sources know, Victor. I mean, with 2 minutes to go here before we have to go to break here, I mean, this is some very breaking news on regards to this, and I'm going to add to it. I'm going to add to it that a lot of people don't know, and this is us as Spaced Out Radio breaking the story, that not only was this conversation held, but just a few weeks ago, there was a major meeting in Ottawa via Zoom that included members of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, as well as Hal Puthoff, talking about Canada's role in ufology. The conversations, Victor, we got about 90 seconds, are now happening. It is real. We have wondered where the Canadian voice was going to be, and now it's coming.
Exactly. I think you've hit the nail right on the head. I know we're sort of pressed for time before the break, but the fact of the matter is, what you've done, David, along with Daniel, he is now, from my understanding, he's now writing for, or a correspondent for CTV News here in Canada, and no longer with Vice. He may be contributing to Vice, but the fact of the matter is Daniel is a journalist of supreme integrity regarding this, and I've had conversations with him, and he's just as ardent about this as you and I are. So I am just waiting for this whole kind of influx of news with respect to UAP and Canadian nuclear installations. And I do have some kind of a side note to this with respect to the late Paul Hellyer on this issue. So maybe we can talk about that. But this is, in fact, big news, and I'm hoping that Daniel can push this thing forward to mainstream media in a way that's never been done before here in Canada.
Luis Elizondo says, thank you very much for allowing us to bring this news out. He goes, you have no idea how much Larry Maguire helped out Canada and the United States today in regards to the UAP subject. It is on. It is open. Where's Canada? Apparently now it is in the UFO game, thanks to Member of Parliament Larry Maguire. We're going to continue this conversation, very important conversation, with Zealand Communications' Victor Viggiani when we return on Spaced Out Radio for the second half hour. Stay tuned. I'm not going to lie, I'm still quite pumped up. I still
No kidding. You're amazing. That's great. No, don't stop. Keep being that way. You have to. It's if you and I, particularly someone like yourself, if we can't get excited about this stuff, then no one else is going to. So we have to really put this thing forward in a way that's dramatic, that's professional, and that's really kind of non-sensationalistic way, so that it's done in a way that the general public can understand what's going on without us. Because if you talk to just the regular, the UFO community, that's one thing. But we have to get the man on the street involved in this issue and saying, how long has this been going on, and why don't I know about it? That's the key question, as far as I'm concerned. And now that an MP, the vice chair of this committee, is doing this, that's our inroad into it, Dave.
Right. I just want to mention something for our chat room tonight. Way too much. This is about UFOs tonight. We're not worried about Ukraine tonight. We're not worried about Russia. Okay. As you know, I'm very pro-Ukrainian, being of Ukrainian descent myself. I don't want to see the talk in the chat room. None of this let's go Brandon bullshit either. Okay. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm a Canadian. And this is my chat room. We're talking UFOs tonight. All right. Nothing about the truckers. You know where I stand on that. And we're keeping it straight. Yes, we're talking politics tonight, but we're keeping it straight on UFOs, people. Straight on UFOs tonight. Help me out in the chat room. Don't overtax the wrenches in the room tonight. They don't need it. They're good people. All right. But let's just keep it nice and clean. Thank you very much, guys. Because I'm going to be honest with you. I am pumped up tonight. Very pumped up in a good way. It's very rare that I get to still use my journalism skills, and like I said, 2 years I've been working on this. 2 years I've been working on this story, and to see it come through fruition, I am a very, very happy man tonight. Very happy man. So let's just keep it nice and calm, and let's just remember, we're having fun tonight. Yeah, let's, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Sovereign Farts. I think you shit your pants with that one. So now I got to erase it.
Stay calm and carry on, bud.
Exactly. All right. Actually, it's pretty much what my shirt says here. There you go. Gorgeous. Candy Romero from Vegas. How are you? Dim-de-dim, what's happening? Yes, my UFO garage hoodie. I love this hoodie. I got to get some SOR ones made of this. Definitely. My brother Eugene, how are you? Mennonite Abe. Thank you, buddy. Obi, I got you too. Thank you. Put Obi up here. You always, Obi, in regards to your conversation there, the one thing that I have learned over the years, is to talk to people. Try and talk to people as much as you possibly can. And that's what I do. Mennonite Abe, thank you very much for the super chat. Gorgeous Tracy Moore, how are you? Lee Poping, looking sexy tonight. Magnus Vermagnuson, good to see you. All right, let's see, what else we got here? That's pretty good for right now. We got about a minute to go here. Thank you to Smithy, Donna, Allison, Gary, Todd, Ed, Thomas, Obi, and Mennonite Abe for the amazing super chats tonight. Want to remind you guys that our good friend Dave Schrader has a brand new show out, a nice podcast. Let me just find it here. Called The Paranormal 60. Well, he has an event coming up here very, very soon that we're proud to promote. Memorial Day weekend, Randolph County Asylum, speakers and paranormal investigating going on. It's 2-day full package or single-day packages. Tickets are available at darknessevents.com. darknessevents.com. And you know what, Dave? There's going to be a ton of paranormal big names there, so make sure you go check that out at darknessevents.com. And we love our good friend Dave Schrader around here. So, it's going to be good. It's going to be real good. We got about 12 seconds to go here. I'm going to shut up because, I've just talked too much. I talked too much. Son of a gun. All right, here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with breaking news out of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada's capital, where the topic of UAP has finally hit the floor by a member of Parliament named Larry Maguire, who brought the questioning about whether or not there are UAPs flying over Canadian nuclear facilities. Joining us to talk about this breaking news, Victor Viggiani from Zealand Communications. Victor, welcome back.
Great to be with you, David. And I just want to reemphasize the fact that what you're doing, what you have done in the year or that you've dedicated to getting this story out has come to some sort of dramatic, and I underline the word dramatic 4 or 5 times, fruition, because this is indeed an historical situation that we're confronted with here in Canada that's paralleling what has been going on in the U.S. Senate over the past several years. Beginning, I might point out, back as far as December of 2017, when Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal and Helena Cooper broke the story about the Pentagon and all of the UFO information investigation that was going on behind the scenes. So I often kind of reference that, David, with respect to the UFO research development since the 1950s. Everything that happened from about 1947 on up until about 2017, I consider as the Old Testament in ufology or in the UFO investigation. But all of a sudden, in 2017, when Blumenthal and Kean and Helena Cooper wrote the story in 2017, I bookmarked that as the New Testament of ufology, of UFO investigation. That 2017 initiative that these 3 authors brought forward, we are now in the position that we're in. The United States government, the Pentagon, the U.S. Navy have all acknowledged, not disclosed, not necessarily provided everything, but they've acknowledged that the UAP issue is in fact real, and that it is being piloted by individuals or some entities that the United States government cannot account for. So we're in a position right now where this has reached into the House of Commons with respect to what Larry Maguire has done as vice chair of this really, really influential committee.
One of the biggest problems we've had here in Canada regarding the UAP subject is the fact that the mainstream media has not jumped on the bandwagon with this. The funny part about it is, Victor, they have covered the American side of this story, but have never asked the simple question, is this happening in Canada? It baffles me, blows my brain up, because it's a simple question. It really is. And yet nobody has asked that question. And I find it absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. Do you think that they are going to find this piece?
It's interesting. Well, let's just back up a second here. Your point about the media covering this is a good one, the Canadian media, okay? I think it's important to realize that there have been instances where Global Television interviewed me with respect to the NORAD documents that I had. I received NORAD documents from a Freedom of Information or Access to Information request that I made. And I received 106 pages of UFO information, 6 of which were air traffic control reports that indicated that CF-18s were chasing 3 UFOs over Canada out of Comox Air Force Base. And Global Television interviewed me on that for a good 15 or 20 minutes. And it's on YouTube, it's on the internet, and I describe every single step of the operation that NORAD went through to track these UFOs out of Comox Air Force Base, and they made contact. It says right in the ATC, the air traffic control report, made contact at 35,000 feet. Now, what did they make contact with? Was there gun camera stuff? We don't really know. But the Global Television did, in fact, report that and aired my interview. But frustratingly enough, it didn't go anywhere. It's like, having, a turkey dinner with no gravy. It didn't go anywhere. So why is this kind of information getting to the point of just a big thud? There's nothing happening with it. Why doesn't it go forward? What is it that keeps it under the glass ceiling? And I think your point about the mainstream media picking this up is, in fact, the most important thing that's going to result from Larry Maguire doing what he's doing. And I think if the Canadian media picks up on this, we've got a new entry into this whole UAP issue here in Canada.
Here's a couple of things that I noticed early on, and I brought them up to our listeners here. So our listeners in Canada will understand this, Victor. But both the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and CTV both sent their Washington State Bureau reporters, one to talk to Chris Mellon in Washington, D.C., and the other one flew out to Wyoming to interview Lou Elizondo. Both had more than 20 minutes of interview coverage with him. And nothing aired about Canada's role in the UAP phenomena. It was all about what was happening in the United States. Now, for people who don't understand, when a country sends a reporter to another country to be part of that bureau, so for instance, Canadian reporters will have bureaus set up in Washington, D.C. to report on it. They have them in London, they have them in Moscow, in Paris, and in Israel and everywhere else. They have reporters stationed in case breaking news happens. Their job is to report stories on how it affects Canada. That is their entire job, to report the facts on what's happening and how it affects Canada. So for these reporters, one from CTV and one from CBC, Victor, to interview Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo on different occasions and not get on tape in the final editing cuts what is happening in Canada regarding this phenomena makes zero sense. Zero.
Well, yeah, I always thought, and to reinforce your point, I always thought that the Canadian media was a little bit more malleable, more flexible with respect to issues like this kind of stuff. As it turns out, there is an unviolent, intransigent blocking of this information with respect to this issue. Now, I'll tell you a bit of a story about that to reinforce the issue that you're stating. In 2013, I attended the citizen hearings on disclosure that was sponsored by Stephen G. Bassett and the Paradigm Research Group. All 5 days of that conference, of that symposium, was in front of U.S. House of Representatives, former U.S. representatives. And on about day 2 of that, I was there for all 5 days. I got a call from Mitch Potter, Toronto Star. And as I was leaving,
sorry, you broke up a little bit there. Who got a hold of you from the Toronto Star?
Mitch Potter. At the time, he was the Washington bureau chief for the Toronto Star. And as I'm leaving the National Press Club in Washington D.C., I get a call on my cell phone from Mitch Potter asking me what the symposium on UAP disclosure was all about. He interviewed me for about 15 or 20 minutes. And the next day, David, he issued a story. The Toronto Star issued a story on the front page of the Toronto Star about UFOs invade Washington. On the front page, David. And it went after that nowhere. So to reinforce your position that the Canadian media really doesn't take this seriously, if you make the front page of the Toronto Star with respect to UFOs, you've hit the ball out of the park with the bases loaded. It went nowhere after that. So I don't know what's going on in Canada. I really don't. And I'm hoping that Larry Maguire, as the vice chair of this committee, can force this issue.
He has to get it into the House of Commons.
Onto the front page. That's right. He has to. Yes, he has to do it.
Well, the other issue that we have with the media, too, and a lot of people may not like me saying this, Victor, is we have a media that, and I'm saying this as a former member of the mainstream media, and I guess technically still am with our show being broadcast on 6 terrestrial radio stations, okay? But the problem with the Canadian media is, too, they have gone way too woke. They want stories of feelings and people who are upset because their neighbor put up the wrong Halloween decorations and it offended them. You know, that's what we're worried about. We're not worried about breaking stories anymore. We're not worried about real news anymore. We're worried about wokeness and how does this affect what we do, and are you wearing the right shoes, and are you eating the right vegan diet? That's what our media has turned to, rather than high-quality reporting. I mean, look at, and I don't want to get too political here, and I know what side I'm on with the protests that happened in Ottawa. I don't know what your side is, Victor, but that's nonetheless here, okay? But we looked at the media there, and if you looked on Twitter, how many journalists were giving their opinions publicly on Twitter 30 years ago, 20 years ago, journalists would never give their opinion on what was happening, whether they were pro or whether they were against. And here we had all of these journalists going out there who are supposed to be reporting impartially, giving their opinions publicly on Twitter about what their feelings were. And like I said, doesn't matter what side you were on, but that is wrong as a journalist. Your wokeness does not matter to the public. I need to know what's affecting me, my taxes, my country, what's happening around the world. That's it. Oh, and my hockey team, too. Can't forget that.
Well, can't forget the hockey, for sure. Well, you make so many good points, David, with respect to the Canadian media. And I'll repeat myself again, that it really is incredible that at one time I thought the Canadian media would be more absorbent about this whole issue, that they would jump on it because it was big, sparkly news. But unfortunately, they haven't. And we know that the news media in the United States, and I'm going to quote all of these, CBS, 60 Minutes covered this issue. Okay, they interviewed a number of people with respect to the UAP issue. They spent 20 minutes on it, and they will continue to cover it. MSNBC has covered it. ABC has covered it. CNN has covered it. Now, how does it burst onto the scene as a major issue? That's the question. I mean, if the UAP issue bursts onto the scene in the United States media with all of the networks that I just mentioned, then you got something. You really got something. And I don't want to minimize anything that's going on in Europe right now with the Ukraine. But if this issue, if the UAP issue related to an extraterrestrial presence and the reality of UFOs were to be recognized by all three major U.S. Networks, we would have the story of the century. But it hasn't yet, even in the United States. Now, in Canada, with this happening right now, we have an opportunity. If we manage this properly, if yourself and people like Daniel Otis and other good journalists, if we manage this properly, we can push this thing forward with respect to CBC, CTV, Global News, and other good Canadian news outlets. And sometimes, it's a double-edged sword. Media sometimes is our best friend and it's our worst enemy. We know that. But we have to manipulate. And I use that word advisedly. We have to manipulate the mainstream media in Canada to recognize that this is the story of the century, so that it becomes something that everybody in Tim Hortons, in our restaurants, and on our buses, and in our colleges, in our universities, everybody is talking about it. What will it take to get to that point is the issue that I'd like to raise.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm going to put a guarantee out for this, and I want all of our listeners in Canada and even the U.S. or wherever you are in this world to look at this up. Look this up in the morning when you wake up and go check any major media outlet in Canada, and I will guarantee 100% that none of the major media outlets have caught on to the breaking story of MP Larry Maguire. None of them. Now, that may be...
Guaranteed.
And look, they may have excuses because of what's happening in the Ukraine. There's been a lot going on in Canada the last little bit. Okay? Canadians are very, very supportive of their thousands of Ukrainians that came over during the Bolshevik Revolution. All right, my great-grandfather included. And so that is especially in the prairie provinces, this one hits home for us. Okay, you have the truckers' protest that went on previous to that for 3.5 weeks. There's a lot of tension right now in Ottawa. Do you think that's the reason why this is going to get swept under the rug, Victor?
It very well could be, because the mainstream media, once again, has a stranglehold on information. And what they decide to put before the audience is basically beyond the control of specific information regarding this whole issue of UAP or UFOs, however you want to manage it or describe it. It has not reached the point of critical information that affects the news media, so that some of them may consider this information as bigger than any other story. As soon as one of our networks here in Canada, one of them, doesn't matter which one, I'm betting on CTV, but that's a long stroke. I'm betting on one of them picking up this information and saying, here is an issue that we cannot ignore. It may subsume or come close to subsuming the information that's going on right now with respect to the pandemic and with Ukraine and all of that. And the problem here is that we are being inundated by so much information that any news story about UAP just gets swallowed up by the other information. So the question is, how do we make this issue relevant? And you know what the information crux of this is? The fulcrum of information? It's energy. That's the crux of the information. If the Canadian media can grab a hold of this issue and not necessarily talk about UAP and all of that, what they have to understand is the basic realization about the reality of UAP is the technology that these UAP, these UFOs, these extraterrestrial agents, entities use to go from one place to another in the cosmos. And once we realize that technology, the energy that they use, drawn from the quantum vacuum of space will eliminate nuclear fission, will eliminate fossil fuels, and bring about a situation where we can control the energy sources here on the planet. That's the issue that they're afraid of recognizing, because the fossil fuel industry has a stranglehold over all of this information. I hold them responsible for keeping this under the glass ceiling. That's my take on it.
Well, I think, too, is we would be remiss if we didn't mention, Victor, that the Canadian government has a long history of having the attitude of, if we don't talk about it, it never happened. If Canadian people actually knew what our soldiers have done in wartime situations on U.S. peacekeeping or UN peacekeeping missions, they'd be blown away. They'd be blown away, and they'd be like, what are we putting our men and women in harm's way like this before? I thought we were peacekeeping, not, taking down terrorists or things like that. We would be mortified. Right. And the Canadian government, and the one thing that for our American listeners and other listeners around the world, there is still a real sense, and it's changing the last few years, but there is still a real sense where the majority of Canadians out there still trust what the government says. And if they don't trust it, they want to trust it. And if they don't hear it from the government, then it's just not going to happen. Or we don't believe it. We still think the government has our best interests at heart. I think that's old world thinking. I think we're beyond those days. Canada and Canadian citizens just haven't caught up. Victor.
Well, you make so many good points. We are so in our niceness, in our polite kind of sociological existence as a Canadian community. We are so polite and so unassuming about all of these issues. We never take on the hardness of how we have to bring forward issues that are uncomfortable, and that's not something that the Canadian media is very good at. Okay, the internet, great, it's brought forward a lot of information, but when an entity like CBC covers the UFO issue, and the other part of this story is. When in December of 2017, when Blumenthal, Leslie Kean, and Helena Cooper broke their story in 2017, I wrote to Anna Maria Tremonti at The Current when she was the host of The Current, and I said, "This is the biggest issue that's happened in the United States, and I think The Current needs to know about this." And The Current is it is and was the number one investigative radio program here in Canada. It broadcasts every single day right across Canada, and it is the number one investigative news program. So I wrote to Anna Maria Tremonti, and what happened was she got back to me and said, "Who can we talk to about this?" And I said, well, there's a number of people. You can talk to Paul Hellyer about it. You can talk to Steve Bassett about it. You can talk to myself about it if you wish. So I didn't hear back from them within a day. But on the Monday, after the release of the Blumenthal article, The Current covered this issue right on CBC nationwide, David, nationwide, with Nick Pope and some other unnamed people about the issue. And they tried to get the Canadian Department of Defense to make a comment on it, and they denied it. But the fact of the matter is, the CBC did cover this issue in one and one only 20-minute segment on The Current. And then after that, what happened? It died as if nothing happened. Why does it happen in Canadian news? And I don't have the answer to that question, David. When it rises to the level of the CBC on The Current, where they have like 12 to 15 million people listening to that every single day, why did it not grab the attention of people in Parliament, the attention of people in other news media? I don't have the answer to that question, and I wish I did.
Victor, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Hard to believe we're already 1 hour into this. The good news is we have 1 hour to go here on the Mighty SOR with this amazing topic up here in Canada. MP from Manitoba, Larry Maguire, breaks out the UAP conversation in very public legislative meetings today in Ottawa. This is what we're talking about. It's an amazing story. Victor Viggiani from Zealand Communications out of Toronto, Ontario, is our guest tonight. We will continue this fantastic conversation when we return on Spaced Out Radio. Victor, I'm going to step away for just a couple of seconds here. I got to hit the loo, but I will be right back, okay?
Good stuff?
Pardon me?
Good stuff?
Oh, I'm having a blast here, man. I'm energized tonight.
Good, okay.
I'm probably not even going to sleep. It's going to be awesome. Be right back.
Okay.
All right, I am back. Jason McDaniel, how are you? The gorgeous and talented Nicole Sakic, thank you for joining us. Bim Jim, how are you, buddy? Davey Crotchkick, how are you? Good to see you, and big night here. Very, very big night for us here on Spaced Out Radio. 2 years I've been working on this. 2 years. I'm sorry, but fuck yeah.
Nicole says I'm looking spiffy.
Yes.
Hi, Nicole.
I love it. I love it.
Thanks, Nicole.
I'm not going to lie. This is a good night here. And thank you, Victor, for coming in on extremely short notice. But David, I hope you've had fun, too.
Well, no, David, this is so important, and you've done such great work. I can't frame it in any other words than that. This is groundbreaking, and let's just hope that we can push this thing forward with a lot of help from our friends to get this thing. And if these two people, if Molly Johnson, the assistant deputy minister, and the other one, John Hannaford, if they can come back to the committee with information, we got something. And we have to push Maguire to find out if he will release what these people tell him about the UFP issue. And he's also asked them to communicate with the Senate Intelligence Committee. Yes. About this whole issue. So there's so many avenues here, David, that can move forward on this.
I know.
If they communicate with that Senate Intelligence Committee, we got something here. That means the United States and Canada might be joining forces to realize what's going on here.
Yeah. Oh, I know, man. I know. And we got about 30 seconds. I want to say a big thank you to Smithy, Donna, Allison, Gary, Todd, Ed, Thomas, Obi, Abe, Jeffrey, Lori, and Snakes for an amazing night of super chats. Thank you so much for supporting what we do on Spaced Out Radio on a nightly basis. We very much appreciate that the love and support that you guys give us on a nightly basis. So thank you so very much. And we're going to continue on here in about 2 seconds.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Eclipsis. Eclipsis is your password. I have no idea what it means, but the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Victor Viggiani from Zealand Communications. Big story breaking out of Ottawa, Ontario, where a member of Parliament, Larry Maguire from the beautiful province of Manitoba, started asking the UAP question. First time in modern history that this has happened. Victor, we had been waiting a long, long time for this. Just how prominent is this question? I mean, it doesn't sound like much to a lot of people. It's going to go over the majority of Canadians' heads, but for those of us who are paying attention, it's massive.
No, you're right. It's so massive that it could very well pierce through some of the news stories that are going on right now. And you have to figure, and this is something that's important for Canadians and our American friends to realize, that you have to figure that if a deputy minister of the committee, John Hannaford, is being asked these kinds of questions by the vice chair of the resource committee, you have to figure that this is going to trickle down into the daily briefing of the Prime Minister. Okay, this is not something that just happened and it's just going to go away. The Prime Minister and his office will be informed about what this issue is all about. There's no way that he will not be informed about the questions that Larry Maguire, an MP, the vice chair of this committee, is asking of a deputy minister. And when you look at someone who's in cabinet, okay, John Hannaford is in cabinet, and cabinet meets with the prime minister, and each one of these cabinet ministers or deputy ministers give a report about their activities with respect to the things that they're doing within their own ministry. And this particular deputy minister has to give a report at some point within cabinet about what he's been discussing with the vice chair of the of this committee, Larry Maguire. So what's going to happen? At some point, the prime minister is going to listen to Larry Maguire's report and the minister's report. And so what's the prime minister going to do? Scratch his head and say, well, no, it's nothing. They're going to have a report on this. And far be it from me to
Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Or as we like to call it, the can't have just one deal. Mix and match a sausage biscuit, sausage McGriddles, McChicken biscuit, chicken McGriddles, or crispy hash browns. Want 2 sausage biscuits? Buy one, get one for $1. Want a sausage biscuit and hash browns? That's cool too. Choose more of what you love. Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
Say there was going to be a royal commission on this. Maybe not yet, but there is definitely going to be reporting back to the deputy minister about this issue. So we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg of this issue, and I think we have to kind of push Larry Maguire a little bit. And I think, Daniel, Otis, and yourself, and perhaps me, I think we've got to push Larry to come forward to be a little bit more public about his feelings. And why did he raise this issue?
I have a feeling.
Why did he, out of nowhere, what did he do? How did he get information? So you tell us about that one. He's got to talk to us about this, David. He has to.
Yes, he does.
There's no recourse for this guy.
I want to ask you about this, though, because the timing is always everything, okay? Timing and synchronicity, all right? The Conservative Party of Canada, which is the party that Larry Maguire represents as a member of Parliament, just recently tossed their leader, Aaron O'Toole, who is a former Canadian Armed Forces helicopter pilot, okay? And from what I'm hearing from my sources in Ottawa, that O'Toole, when he was the leader of the Conservative Party, had no intention or no desire to get into the UAP subject. It was blasé to him, didn't mean anything to him. Now that he's gone, this tells me that Maguire, over the last couple of years, hint, hint, has been having conversations with people regarding this subject, behind the scenes. And now that his boss is out of the way, and there is no official leader of the Conservative Party or the opposition, now he has carte blanche to throw this question in at the proper timing.
It's what a great perspective that is. I mean, that's something that reaches right up to the leadership of both of these parties, the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party. So each of them, from what you're describing, have a conduit through which they can raise this issue. And once again, I guess we have to look at it, David, from the perspective of their understanding. They have to be asking, why is this important? Why is, as ministers, as the prime minister, who, let's say that they're relatively ignorant about this whole issue, they have to ask the question behind closed doors, okay, guys, why is this important? So I think we have to get people like Larry Maguire to say, Here's why this issue is important. This is not just something flagrantly saying, well, we've got these strange craft hovering over nuclear installations, which there's no explanation for, yada, yada, yada. We have to explain or provide him with information about why this situation is so vitally important with respect to the intrusion of UAP, UFOs, and extraterrestrial entities into the airspace of Canada and the United States and other countries too. Why it is so important. They have no idea what the implications are. So I think it's up to us to inform them as to why it's important. It may be something that they're considering. Okay, fine, it's information. But they don't understand at this point why it's important. It all goes back to energy, David.
Yes.
That's my point here. So we can.
I got a comment that I want to make, but I want to ask you this question first. All right. And that is the fact that now that this subject has officially opened the door to UAP conversation within the hallowed halls of Parliament Hill in Ottawa, and let's hope that this continues. All right.
Sure.
What does this mean between the conversations between the United States, maybe people like Luis Elizondo or Chris Mellon or others, even maybe Marco Rubio and Senator Gillibrand regarding this subject, now that the Canadian side is talking about this?
It's a confluence of information, right? What's happened with Rendlesham Forest and the whole Rendlesham incident in the UK with the UAP there over their nuclear installations. And then we have a situation that Captain Robert Salas has put forward with respect to his information having UAP shut down nuclear missiles. And then we have information regarding this becoming an issue within the Canadian perspective. What we have is what I call, David, is a convergence of evidence. Okay? We have multiple levels of information all converging on one point. And once you get converging lines of evidence, converging on one singular aspect of some information, okay, it's one thing to have one person or one entity saying this or that. But when you get multiple entities providing converging lines of evidence towards some specific issue, then you've got something. And this is what we've got right now. Now we've got Rendlesham Forest, the UK, the Robert Salas testimony, the UAP issue with respect to Gillibrand and Rubio and all of that. And then you compound that with the Canadian perspective on this. You've got multiple converging lines of evidence that something is going on with respect to unidentified flying objects hovering over or interdicting with nuclear installations. And once the media realizes that this is not something that we can just sort of say, well, it's just a coincidence. This is a major confluence of information. And I think that that's what the media, mainstream media, needs to use to put this thing forward to become a real and viable issue. And it just depends on who within Canada, the Canadian media, can make this real. That's the question that you and I are confronted with right now. Who can we get? What Canadian media entity can we get to put this information forward in a real, viable way? And I just, programs like this and the information you have with Daniel Otis with CTV, I think we have a possible wedge of interdiction with respect to highlighting this information to become a real issue. Now, we've got some problems here. The problems are the Ukraine right now. I mean, these people are going through something that's, unimaginably devastating. How can we cut through that? This issue has to become something, I don't want to say more important, because that's not right. But we have to put this thing forward as a rational, professional issue that we have to consider. And the media has to walk and chew gum at the same time. We can deal with the Ukraine, We can deal with the pandemic, but we can also deal with the UAP issue in a rational way that everybody knows that we are, in fact, being engaged by off-world civilizations. And Larry Maguire is the tip of the iceberg for Canada right now. That's my contention.
Well, Larry Maguire will also have to get other MPs on board as well, not only from his party, but across party lines as well. And we know that breaking news on Spaced Out Radio earlier tonight that, Victor, we had learned from our sources in Ottawa that MPs had been meeting as recently as a few weeks ago with members of the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, and in that meeting was Hal Puthoff. And with Hal Puthoff, his name is all over the UAP subject for the last 50 years, going back to, his days with the CIA. Now, earlier tonight before the show, I talked with Paul Kingsbury, who is the professor of geography at Simon Fraser University in Burnaby, British Columbia, and coincidentally, a board member of the SCU. And this is what he stated to me. He goes, Larry Maguire's initiative now brings Canada now brings Canada to the forefront in guiding the scientific study on UAP. I look forward to seeing the Canadian government's response and actions to this. That was a statement that he brought right to us, right on a text message to me, and I appreciate Paul doing that. And he's not speaking on behalf of the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. He's not doing that at all, even though he's a board member. But he is saying, as someone who is a scholar here in Canada, who is very interested in gaining knowledge about this subject. And the fact that these meetings are going on behind the scenes, I think it's absolutely fantastic, because for so long, Victor, we didn't know that there was any meetings going on. I'll get you to unmute yourself, Victor.
It's interesting that you should portray it in that way. It's like the image or the scenario or the metaphor of a duck on a pond, floating along, very silently. But underneath the pond, their feet are just sort of wagging very fast. I mean, there's something going on below the surface of the water. And although the duck is remaining calm, its feet are just wagging away to find out a direction that it has to go in order to move forward. And I think that's where we're at. If Larry Maguire, as the vice chair of this particular committee, is an activist, let's just sort of proffer that point of view for a second. If he is, in fact, interested, that's one thing. Fine. He's just got this information. He's interested in it. That's one thing. But if he's an activist, if he is embedded in this issue, he won't let it go. He will become a bulldog about this. And you know what bulldogs are about? They just don't want to let the bone go. So if Larry Maguire is the bulldog that we need to move this thing forward, to push the Ministry of Natural Resources to come forward with information that he demanded of them, he requested of them to come forward with respect to the United States information on this and the communication with the Senate committee in the United States about this. If he is serious about this, it's going to happen. Now, the question will be, who will he be shut down? Maguire and say, Larry, come and sit down. That's enough. You've very nice conversation, but that's enough. Or will he be an activist? Will he be so intransigent about this issue that he won't let it go? Will he be a bulldog activist about this issue and demand from the Minister of Natural Resources to say, we want answers to why UAP, 3 of them at least, are hovering over or interdicting with our nuclear facilities? And the answers to those questions, David, are going to be so intrusive that he won't be able to, the minister that is, be able to escape the real issue of what's going on with respect to what Rubio, with Mark Warner, and with Kristen Gillibrand have done in the United States. Those issues are intertwined so closely that eventually they will become converging lines of evidence for the Canadian media. So there's so many possibilities here that we can't deny, or they can't dismiss. And it has to come from that committee. And if Larry Maguire is worth his salt, he's not going to let go of this issue. He should not and must not let go of this issue.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. He must not let go. You've opened up the subject, okay? You won the opening face-off. If we use a hockey analogy here, you've now won the opening face-off. What are you going to do with the puck after you've dumped it into the opposition zone? What are you going to do with the puck? You can skate to the bench and make a change, or you can go dig for it. And we need to make sure, and we, as ufologists, have to make sure that we put the pressure on Larry Maguire to continue the argument. Not behind the doors, Victor. That day is over now. That day, you can have those conversations. Like if he's talking to Elizondo or Mellon or somebody in the U.S. government about this, I get it, of course. Those conversations have to be private. Okay, but in front of the Canadian media, now that you brought it up, you have to bring it into the House of Commons. You have to get a multi-party decision on what's going on. You have to get the other people going. You have no choice. If you drop it now, you're just no better than anybody else.
Exactly. I think that you raise a really good point, because what Larry Maguire has to do now is he has to make a political decision here. He's spoken to, interviewed, and pressed the Deputy Prime Minister of the Natural Resources Committee, John Hannaford. He's pressed him on the issue, requested information from him that they have to get back to him about. He's also demanded or requested that he communicate with the U.S. Intelligence committees about this information. So there's a whole lot of tentacles to this issue. So what we have to do is ensure that MP Larry Maguire brings this forward onto the floor of the House of Commons in question period at some point.
Has to.
With the Minister of Defense, okay, with CSIS, and all of the agencies that are involved with the quiet subversion of information about stuff that's going on that the Canadian public doesn't know about. We have to bring this forward onto the floor of the House of Commons, and as soon as it gets onto the House floor, to the floor of the House of Commons, then we've got a story. Larry Maguire is nipping at the edges of this within the committee. But what he has to do is bring this forward onto the floor of the House of Commons and eventually bring forward this issue into the Senate Committee on Defense. Okay? That's where this really happens. And if the Senate Committee takes this on, like Jason Kennedy was requested to do by Paul Hellyer, which is another story altogether that we can talk about. Once all of those things come together, then we might have a story. And then we might have a story where CTV, CBC, and Global News might cover this issue. So that's how this thing might flower. It might bloom into the mainstream media within Canada.
Here's the other thing that we also got to look at, though, Victor, and we might have to carry it over as we only got 90 seconds. Larry Maguire is a 70-year-old politician. Okay, he is somebody who, let's face it, does not have a lot of time left in his political career. I believe he's been doing it for 20-plus years as an elected official, and it's getting to the point where he needs somebody younger in that 30s to 40s to 50-year-old range to carry that torch. There is no choice. Otherwise, this topic dies with him if all of a sudden there's an election in 2 years and he decides not to run.
Well, you raise a good point. Who will carry on the legacy? I guess is the question within Parliament. It's a good question. I don't know who will. Molly Johnson, the assistant deputy in the ministry that John Hannaford is part of. She may be. I mean, she seems to be someone who's relatively young, relatively alert, and possibly entwined with an issue that we don't really know about. So she may be someone who we can depend upon if she's pressed properly, because she has to find out what's going on. And that was the question that Larry Maguire asked of the deputy prime minister, John Hannaford. He didn't know anything about it. He deferred the question to her.
Very true.
And she said, "Well, yeah, we'll look at it. We'll have a look at it. If she can pick up this issue as an assistant deputy in this whole issue, if she can pick it up, then we've got someone who's a little bit younger that can maybe take this thing forward."
Victor, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We got Victor Viggiani. Another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. Canada's officially in the UFO game. It's about time, Canada. We'll be back right after this. Very good points. But you know what, Victor? The ugly part about this is seeing what happens in the next election, right? Yeah. Because let's face it, there are two parties out there that extremely polarized themselves over the last few weeks. And this could be a complete shit kicking in Ottawa if you know, we don't know which way it's going to go. It's a coin flip.
You bet. I mean, I have a little sympathy for Justin Trudeau, but big but. He, right now, at this point, in my estimation, he's the best of the whole lot of worst alternatives. And how would it come about that the Canadian electorate would realize that, okay, we need a change in government, and what would that mean? Okay, who would take over? Who would be the Conservative or whoever, or a really messy coalition of three parties that have, you know, one third, and one party's got one more vote than another. I mean, that's going to be a really messy situation, and I think that's what Justin Trudeau is facing right now. He is facing an election that his party may get one more seat than all the other parties. Okay, he's going to be in a really messy situation.
Oh, yeah. Or it depends how pissed off Canada is, or the people of Canada are. And you know what? That's an entirely different conversation right there. I mean, frankly, the only thing I like about Trudeau is his sock collection. That's the only thing I respect about him.
Is his what?
Sock collection.
Say again?
His sock collection.
Right, yeah.
Right? But, I mean, the rest of it, you know, I mean, from being on the west side of Canada here, I mean, I'm sorry, I will never vote for the man again. But that's just me. That's just me. I'm one vote in a riding that has never seen anybody but a Conservative ever win, you know?
Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Or as we like to call it, the can't have just one deal. Mix and match a sausage biscuit, sausage McGriddles, McChicken biscuit, chicken McGriddles, or crispy hash browns. Want 2 sausage biscuits? Buy one, get one for $1. Want a sausage biscuit and hash browns? That's cool too. Choose more of what you love. Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value. Cannot be combined with combo meal. Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Or as we like to call it, the can't have just one deal. Mix and match a sausage biscuit, sausage McGriddles, McChicken biscuit, chicken McGriddles, or crispy hash browns. Want 2 sausage biscuits? Buy one, get one for $1. Want a sausage biscuit and hash browns? That's cool too. Choose more of what you love. Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
So,
you know what? Justin Trudeau is the greatest could have been.
Oh, yeah.
Is the greatest could have been that could ever be in Canadian politics, but he fucking blew it.
Yep.
He fucking blew it.
For the last few years.
Yes, he really has. He's come across as a simpleton, as someone who really doesn't understand issues, who just expounds platitudes about what the situations are. We don't need that kind of leadership. And who else? I mean, where is leadership coming from? If he were to grab his balls and say, okay, here's what we need to do, and do this and do that, and become like his father, who, I mean, the guy was a bastard. Pierre Trudeau was a bastard.
Everybody hated him, but everybody voted for him.
You betcha. His greatest line was, you're going to do this, just watch me. The man had integrity. Now, his son doesn't have that same kind of gravitas, and as much as he tries, he just soaps the issue in just blatant rhetoric. And I just feel like giving the guy a slap and say, "Look, get yourself hard again, and just go after the issues in a way that people will really understand the gravity of everything." But I don't think he has that capacity. I really don't feel
we're too worried about people kind and she-cession and all this kind of stuff. We're worried about that rather than proper issues that affect every Canadian.
Yeah,
right? And I've never seen a prime minister in our history who has talked down to people more than this one. Like a teacher would talk down to a student. So either
platitudes, basically.
Yeah.
Basically. Let me tell you something. Okay, how much time do we have left?
We got about a minute here.
Okay, here. Let me tell you something. A very good friend of mine, the wife of Richard Dolan, she's a Canadian, okay?
Yep.
She knew Justin Trudeau as a ski instructor in Montreal. And they fell in love, okay? The two of them fell in love. And they were almost married, these two people, okay? But for some reason, she or he cut it off. And Justin Trudeau became despondent about this broken relationship. And she told me that Justin Trudeau is a broken person. He's a broken person.
Looks like it.
And so how does this guy become, the leader of the Liberal Party? By his name.
Exactly.
And I think I don't want to be simplistic about it, but I think that's what happened.
I think so, too. All right, Victor, hold on.
That he's riding on the wave.
Hold on right there, buddy.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yep, we're ready. Yep, okay.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight for another 25 minutes or so. We have Victor Viggiani from Zealand Communications. Major UFO news coming out of Canada today, where Conservative MP Larry Maguire out of the province of Manitoba actually brought the UAP question out into the forefront at a standing meeting for natural resources about whether or not UAPs have been seen and reported over Canadian nuclear facilities. This has never been done before in Canada in recent or modern history, and this is very, very big news. Victor, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, it's been really great because we've exposed some really important information, not just with respect to what happened in Ottawa tonight, but this information that's been brought forward by MP Larry Maguire, the vice chair of this very powerful committee. It entwines ourselves, it entwines all of the information with what the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee has been working on since 2017, since Blumenthal and Leslie Kean and Helena Cooper exposed about the Pentagon issue with respect to the UAP issue. So we've got, like, what's happening here is converging lines of evidence. I know I mentioned this earlier in the program, but these converging lines of evidence now occurring in Canada are so closely related to what's happening in the United States that if this comes upon the House of Commons as an issue in question period that maybe come from the Green Party or the NDP, or these are all other parties within the Canadian Parliament. If these issues come forward on the House of Commons floor as a discussion point, the Canadian media will have no choice but to cover it. So, I mean, if the NDP party, the New Democratic Party here in Canada, gets a hold of this issue and says, what's going on with nuclear facilities and unidentified flying objects? Once that happens, every single mainstream media correspondent or journalist in Canada is going to pick up on it as soon as that comes up in question period on the floor of the House of Commons. Guaranteed that is going to happen. And I think Larry Maguire is making it happen.
I'm curious to know if Larry Maguire, after opening this little can of worms here, is going to release what he has learned. I think that it's, if this gains momentum, Larry Maguire, he may not spill who he's talked to on this, but we're going to need to know what he's learned a little bit about this subject. Who has he talked to? Has he talked to Mellon? Has he talked to Elizondo? We know that there's a potential that maybe he talked to Hal Puthoff, even though the MP names haven't been released to me yet. All right, we need to figure this out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hang on a second here. Let's step back. Harry Reid. You know that name.
Yes.
Okay. The senator who provided $2 million of funding money to investigate UFOs. He and Inouye and another senator whose name I can't remember at the time, right now, provided $2 million for the UN, for the Pentagon to investigate UFOs. He was interested in this, so much so that he commandeered that much money to begin an investigation about UFOs within the Pentagon. And it succeeded, and Luis Elizondo was part of that, okay? So the parallel here is Senator Harry Reid in the United States begins an investigation about UFOs over nuclear installations and shutting down nuclear missiles. Okay? So parallel that on this side of the Canadian border with what Larry Maguire is doing. He's doing exactly the same thing. I see the two, paralleling one another. So we could have a situation where Senator Harry Reid, who recently passed away, is being succeeded on the Canadian side with doing exactly the same thing in demanding questions, demanding information within the Canadian community, the Natural Resources Committee that he's chairing, vice chairing. The same thing. So we could land up with a very, very similar situation as what happened in the Select Committee on Intelligence in the U.S. Senate. So what's happening here is another converging line of evidence is happening here in Canada. So what comes next? as you stated earlier, the Canadian media needs to pick up on this. And someone like Daniel Otis could perform exactly the same kind of function that Ralph Blumenthal, Leslie Kean, and Helena Cooper did with their exposure in 2017 of this issue. And Daniel Otis could very well, through CTV, do exactly the same thing up here in Canada. And he is a very pivotal point of contact within this whole resolution of this issue here in Canada. And I'm hoping that Daniel can push this thing forward through your work and through the contacts that you've made, and with the support of Luis Elizondo, realizing what's going on up here, that we can do the same thing in a parallel kind of way up here in
the question.
Canada.
The question is,
the two situations are so dedicatedly similar.
Right. Victor, the question I have for you, though, is this. Down in the U.S., legacy politicians, like Harry Reid, still have a lot of pull within the party and within governmental affairs, even though they may be retired from electoral office. Outside of a minor few in Canada, do we have that happening here where, let's say, previous to the next election, let's say the next election is in 2 years in Canada, and in a minority government, it can happen at any time. All right. If an election is called and Larry Maguire decides after 20 plus years that he's not going to run anymore, he's tired, he wants to retire, spend some time with his family, how does he continue that UAP legacy if he's out of office?
Well, oh boy, how long is a piece of string? You just don't know. A good question. I think, in response to that issue, once someone like Larry Maguire, for whatever reason, grabs onto this issue, and I think we have to look, let's just spend a moment on the issue or the idea of why Larry Maguire has grabbed onto this issue. What is his modus operandi of doing this? Is it political? Is it his interest in UFOs? Is it someone in his family that's talked to him about UFOs? Does he visit Spaced Out Radio to find out more? Why is it?
I know he's listened.
That's right. So he's there. He's grabbed onto the information, and once anybody that I know, politician, journalist, once they grab onto the gravity and the authoritative gravitas of this issue, once they grab onto it, they don't let it go, David. They don't let it go. And I think where Larry Maguire might be right now is pushing this forward. I mean, I don't know how old the guy is. He's in his mid-70s, whatever. He's an activist. He's going to push this thing forward like nobody's business. If he's less than that, he's going to relegate it to someone who he feels may continue his legacy. But he has no alternative right now because he has raised it. And he's raising it for a reason. He knows something is going on. And once you know this UAP, UFO, ET issue is going on, you don't let it go. You do not let it go. And that's why Hal Puthoff is doing this. That's why John Podesta is going through this. That's why Leslie Kean is going through this. This is why Jacques Vallée is going through this. They do not let this issue go. And if Larry Maguire can do that, not let it go, and either push it forward himself or relegate it to someone who he can entrust with the issue, we may have some substantive movement on this eventually within the UFO research community. And I think it's up to people like you and I to push him to do that. We have to push him. Don't let this go, Larry. Don't just say, well, this is just it's like wheat in the prairies or fossil fuels or a pipeline. This is totally different. You have to move forward with this and not let it go.
Tony over in the United Kingdom, and good morning to Tony, He is asking, Victor, do you think that maybe this could happen in the United Kingdom with the likes of Rendlesham in the past? What's your thoughts?
Good question. Good question. I think that the Rendlesham Forest case and everything that happened surrounding all of that, and with the information that I've gained from Nick Pope, Gary Hesseltine, and all the individuals who had investigated Rendlesham Forest, it is just another nugget in the whole, what I call converging lines of evidence. So we've got something that happened in Rendlesham Forest and within the nuclear installation there, where we had UFOs, interdicting or investigating or looking at or influencing nuclear installations. It's all part of a large area surrounding the fact that we are, in fact, dealing with an extraterrestrial intelligence that are vitally interested, underline that, vitally interested in our nuclear capacity, our nuclear capabilities. And when they interdict with this, or when they influence our nuclear capacity, as Captain Salas has already said, they are demonstrating to us that our nuclear weaponry will not be viable in the cosmos. So what they're doing is they're saying, we will shut down any kind of nuclear incursions, any kind of nuclear activity with respect to weaponry. And as soon as you attempt to use those weaponries, we are going to disable those things. And they've demonstrated that in Malmstrom Air Force Base and multiple other kinds of nuclear installations. So what we're dealing with is an extraterrestrial presence who have said to us, fine, dick around with your nuclear weapons, but when you attempt to leave your planet with those weapons into the cosmos, you will be quarantined. You will not be able to move outside of your own limited kind of sphere. So you will not be able to bring those weapons into space, and we will quarantine you and not allow you to use them. That's their message. So bring it back to what Larry Maguire is investigating. It's the same thing. We will not be able to use nuclear weaponry into the cosmos once we begin to become a spacefaring civilization. We will not be allowed to do it. And they will quarantine it. They won't allow us to do it because we're just so Neanderthal about all of this that we have to assert our dominancy by using weaponry to gain dominance over people that are so far advanced of us. So we're really in a predicament here, David. We're really in a very, very serious predicament that brings us back to the point of why does Larry Maguire want to raise this issue? I would love to spend 3 minutes in this man's mind to find out why he's raising this issue. I would love to know that. It all comes back to these converging lines of evidence as to why the extraterrestrial presence is dominating the nuclear issue with respect to the planet Earth. It's a very convoluted and very complex issue, but I need to know why he's doing this as a Canadian MP. This perplexes me to no end.
Well, I know there are 6 or 8 members of Canadian universities who are part of the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. They take this, like Paul Kingsbury, who I read a statement from earlier on in the show. And I know that they take this subject and they want this subject pushed forward in Canada because it is absolutely naive of any politician or person of the Great White North to be thinking that this is an American problem. It's not an American problem. It's an American mystery that also happens to affect about 7.8 billion people on this planet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
no, you're right.
The idea that, hey, Mr. Maguire may have, like I said, may have won the opening face-off, but I also think that it's up to those members of the SCU to not be, that are Canadian, to not be silent on this. They should be responding with media releases and press releases offering to talk about this subject to the media or shows like ours, and we need to have them speak up. Larry Maguire, to me, opened the doors. The doors are open. Yep. And now the question is, who is going to walk through? We know Victor Viggiani is going to walk through. We know Dave Scott is going to walk through. We know Daniel Otis is. We know Grant Cameron is. We know Chris Rutkowski is. Hell, the spirit of Stanton Friedman is going to walk with us. We know that. And same as Paul Hellyer. But the question is, who is walking with us on the media side, on the political side, and on the scientific side? We know the experiencers will, and all the eyewitnesses will. But who's
let's look into that one. That is just exactly. Yeah.
You know,
if we look at the American experience within the Senate Committee on Intelligence and how they come with their investigation and their demands of the Director of National Intelligence and the Office of the Inspector General with respect to UAP and demanding reports from all of those. If we look at what's going on there, there's a huge, consensus within the UAP research community that hopefully this Senate committee will call hearings where they would bring forward within the Senate Intelligence Committee hearings where they would call forward, UAP experts, pilots, U.S. Navy people like Hal Puthoff, Chris Mellon, all of the Luis Elizondo, and have hearings with respect to all of the public hearings about it. Okay, so using that model and the hope that we have that the United States may do that. This U.S. committee may do it. We're really hoping that will happen. People like Stephen Bassett and Richard Dolan and a lot of other people are really kind of pushing the idea that this could and may happen. Flip that over into the Canadian community. If Larry Maguire is serious about his ventures into the UAP issue. Okay, we don't know what he knows. We don't know where he's been plugged into. We don't know where he's coming from with this issue. I'd love to know that. But what if he said to the Deputy Minister of Natural Resources, we want hearings on this. We want to bring forward the NORAD pilots who have chased UAP. We want to bring forward people like the former Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer. Well, he's no longer available. But we want to bring forward people who have actual access to information about the UFO UAP issue. We'd like to have hearings up here in Canada.
Well, and that's what I'm just going to ask you. Where do those hearings have to be? Do they have to be in Ottawa? Could they be in Vancouver? Does it have to be in Toronto? Because, look, I think that it's time for a Canadian hearing on this, much like what we saw Steve Bassett do in the United States. Canadian people, Canadian researchers.
Exactly.
And I would volunteer myself and this show to be a conduit to putting that together, because it's definitely needed.
Let me tell you something, David. You've raised an absolutely pointed event here. And if Larry Maguire wants to do or find out what he wants to find out, or what I feel that he wants to find out, he could very well put forward within his committee hearings on this whole issue and bring forward this, and it'll happen in Ottawa, and it'll happen on the same channel, the YouTube channel that we found out his information about. And I think that's well within the possibility of him demanding, asking, requesting, whatever it might be, bringing forward hearings on how these so-called UAP, UFO entities, drones, whatever they are, we want to find out, and we want hearings to find out why our nuclear installations are being monitored by these craft of unknown origin. I don't think that's much of a stretch. It's not. It really is. We want to know. And I think it's something very possible. possible for me.
I think if we got the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, the Canadian scientists that are on that board, I think if we got all 6 of them together politically, this would be one hell of a good conference to put on in Ottawa to show that this needs to be brought forward. And Victor, maybe we're talking aloud here, but maybe this is something we need to put together, put our brains together and do it.
You know, David, you are well within the realm of possibility, only because of what you've brought forward this evening over the past 2 hours. There is no limit to the possibility that what you are suggesting is that Canadian hearings about this, because it's inside of this committee, is totally and completely possible. So Larry Maguire can say, okay, fine, thank you very much for your information. I want hearings. I want to get Navy. I want to get NORAD. I want to get Canadian Air Force. I want to get the news media. I want to get Dave Scott. I want to get Victor Viggiani. I want to get Grant Cameron. I want to get them up in front of hearings to suggest that we may be engaged by off-world civilizations. What's the possibility of that? I think is very, very strong because of what Larry Maguire has done, and he is the Larry Reid. The Senator Reid about this. He really is. He's the fulcrum here. And I think we have to depend on him to move this thing forward. And I think what you're doing, David, is so pivotal. So, and with Daniel Otis is so pivotal in bringing those kinds of things to fruition. Not just sort of reporting on it and ragging the buck as sometimes Canadians do, but to make sure that we move this whole issue forward in a relevant, coherent, professional, and political way, so that Canadians understand what's really going on here.
Victor Viggiani, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio on short notice to talk about this highly, highly charged story breaking in Canada about UAPs. We really appreciate Zealand Communications, your support, and we got to give a big shout out to Daniel Otis, freelance journalist, writer for Vice Magazine, for breaking this story earlier on today, and we've kind of carried it over here. Victor, you're one of the good ones out there. Thank you so much. Zealand Communications.
Great to be with you, David, and let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. We'll probably have you back on for an update on this. Coming up next, Hour 3, Swamp Dweller's back, and we got the fedora-wearing John Hudson with the UFO report. Hour 3 is next on Spaced Out Radio. I will give you a phone call later on today, because I'm going to be on the phone with a number of people today.
Okay.
And
just keep me updated.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, I do
So
have I do have some other stuff I got to share with you.
Yeah, I've got the press release ready. All basically is just a recount of the video, and I've included the statement that you sent to me by
Paul Kingsbury.
Simon Fraser.
And
I'm going to put that out, and I'll do it updated as you see fit. So keep me posted.
Yeah, and anything you want to use from this show in your article, go ahead.
Perfect.
All right.
Love you, bud.
Yeah,
love you lots. Okay.
This show will be archived probably in about an hour and a half.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Take care.
See you, Vic. Victor Viggiani, everybody. We love him around here. Love him. He's a good man. Good man. And, if he's so on top of what's happening in the Canadian world. And once again, we got to give a big shout out to Victor Viggiani from Zealand Communications for hanging on out with us and coming in on short notice, like literally 40 minutes before the show. We decided to flip the guests and do this show. And thank you to my team from Dirty Filth and Kat and Vincent for getting the show ready for tonight on quick notice. Sometimes when you're in the hot seat like I am, you got to be able to change on the fly. And I know I use a lot of hockey cliches around here, but we changed on the fly tonight, and it worked beautifully. It worked beautifully, and very, very good story. Very good story. Oh, Nicole Sakic. I got to show this. I got to show what Nicole Sakic just sent me. This is amazing. I love it. I love it. Look at this. Larry McGuire, where are the UAP reports? John, what is a UAP? Molly, shit. Oh. Man, that is awesome, Nicole Sakic. Awesome. Yeah, better not be a Mandela effect. I would probably stroke out over this. Nicole, I'm just going to tell you right now, that'll be going up on my Instagram and everything. So thank you, my dear. Appreciate that. Oh, you are brilliant. That's why I love her. That's why I love her. Nicole Sakic. She's number one. Number one. Make sure you get that over to Dirty Filth. Oh. I am happy tonight. I really am. And thank you guys. Look, I don't really, because the majority of our audience here is American, I try, to get little jabs in because I'm pretty proud to be Canadian. Okay, but I don't like doing a lot of Canadian shows all the time. But this is huge for us tonight, and I hope you guys understand the reasoning to tonight's show and the importance to the entire UAP subject that another one of the Five Eyes countries has actually brought this up. So, this is a big moment for us. And it's a big win for the community, too. I'm happy. I'm just going to fist pump. Now I feel good. Oh. Yes. Yes. Dirty Phil sends me a message. Holy fuck, Dave. Fist pump. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much to Smithy, Donna, Allison, Gary, Todd, Ed, Thomas, Obi, Abe, Jeffrey, Lori, and Snakes for the amazing super chats tonight. Really do appreciate the love and support that you guys have given us tonight and every night that you do. Really much appreciate the love. Super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. We got a plethora of super chats tonight, so thank you. James Weston, how you doing, buddy? Carbine's right. How's it going, my friend? Mr. Eon, the voice of the gods. If you've never heard Mr. Eon's voice, you're missing out. Oh, stunning. I can honestly say I have a crush on Mr. Eon's voice. I do. I have a crush on it. Alien Critter, what's going on? We got 25 seconds. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate you tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Eclipsis. Oh, did I butcher that one? Eclipsis. There we go, Eclipsis. Whatever the heck that means, the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go as we bring in Mr. Swamp Dweller, who takes us on a journey of a spooky story down in the swamp.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. So I live in a city, and one night I was with a girl. We are both middle-aged in our late 30s or early 40s at the time. I am now 48 years old. One night, her and I decided to go to a cemetery as lovers do. We have been to this cemetery a couple of times previously, always at nighttime though. This cemetery is rather big, and has two halves. Well, this night I decided to pull into the half we never went into together. I have been to this half plenty of times. I used to carry my flat-bottom boat to the pond that butts up to the cemetery to fish. So, this night we pulled in and exited the car. The weather was rather nice. It was a nice summer night, good conditions, stars in full bloom. We are standing at the hood of the car. We had not been out there for more than 5 minutes if I had to guess. Now, it is pitch dark outside, and there is no noise at all. No bugs, no cars in the distance. It was total silence. Just her and I. It was the only sound that we could discern. As we were standing there, I was getting ready to embrace her, and out of nowhere, we hear this deep growl. Now, I know how a dog's growl sounds, and this definitely was not a dog or a coyote. There is not much wildlife in this part of the city anyhow. This growl was in my face. It was not below my belt as if it were a dog or something. I stand 6 feet tall, and this growl was face level, and it penetrated through my chest. It was very vocal and strong. It was like a warning. I felt the growl go through my upper body. Without hesitation, we both immediately jumped in the car, and yes, I immediately hit the car lights as I was jumping in. I had to see what it was, because I just knew it was not anything of normalcy. When the lights were on, there was absolutely nothing there, just an empty cemetery. I could not believe what I was looking at. Something was literally eye level with me and gave me a warning of some sort, and then it just disappeared. It happened so fast, and how could it just be gone like that? Once in the car, I asked her what she thought about it. She said that she did not know, but that growl went through my entire body, and that she wanted to leave. Since that experience, I have not gone back in there, not even to fish. To this day, I still wonder what the hell that was. I don't think it was any sort of wildlife. Well, I hope this is a good story and makes your list. Either way, I will never forget this night. I have had a couple of strange things happen to me in my lifetime. I have lived in both New Zealand and Australia, and I have had some weird experiences for both, but I want to talk about the two I experienced growing up. As I am 19 now and they have stuck with me ever since I can remember. The first story is the first paranormal thing I can remember happening to me. There have been a few now. I grew up in a rural area of New Zealand in the South Island. I was around 5 years old at the time this story happened. It was sometime around 7:30 at night, and I was playing with my dolls. As I sat there playing, I began to get that cold and uneasy feeling that often settles over you when you are being watched. Being a small child, I did not know exactly what to do, so I froze, my hands clenched around the dolls tightly. It felt like forever, as I sat there, waiting for the feeling to dissipate. But it didn't. It continued, until eventually from my closet, I heard the soft voice of a man say, "Hello?" I was immediately filled with fear. I muttered a quiet, "Hello?" back before I bolted to my parents crying hysterically, telling them what I had heard. They did not take my story too seriously, as I was so small. They chalked it up to a hyperactive imagination, and since it was past my bedtime, they thought maybe I was just sleep-deprived. The other story comes from when I was 7 years old. This happened to me, and multiple other people, but it still left me very jittery. This story happened at my primary school. Now some important background information about my school. It was in a place in New Zealand called Tua Marina, and was situated below a cemetery on a hill, the site of which memorializes the event which took place in the area where at least 4 Maori people were killed in 1843 by British colonizers over a land dispute. That, and it is also a commemorative site for locals killed in the Boer War. It is a delightful spot for a primary school, I am aware. I was going into the bathroom during my lunch break when I stumbled across the older sister of one of my friends surrounded by her friends crying hysterically. The girls looked at me and were worried. They thought that I might tell the teacher. I cannot remember why exactly, so they asked me if I would keep a secret. And so the sister began to describe what had happened. She had been playing hide-and-seek with her friends in the wooded area of my school, the area closest to the cemetery on the hill. She had been hiding when she saw the shadow of a man on one of the trees opposite of her. When she turned to run, it began to whisper her name repeatedly, so she ran and found her friend who was the seeker, and when they went to see it again, the shadow was gone.
Wow, thank you so much to Mr. Swamp Dweller for another amazing story that we are talking with. Of course, you can always check out more of Swamp Dweller's shows here at YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads, and he'll bring you right to it. Oh, yes, it is time once again where we stick with UFOs tonight. The fedora-wearing John Hudson makes his triumphant return once again. There he is, Darth Fedora, with the unbiased UFO report. John comes in a couple times a week to break everything on down. John, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, hanging in, having kind of a rough night, so I apologize, but yeah.
Oh, your hair looks fantastic, though. Freshly washed and manicured.
Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Or as we like to call it, the can't have just one deal. Mix and match a sausage biscuit, sausage McGriddles, McChicken biscuit, chicken McGriddles, or crispy hash browns. Want 2 sausage biscuits? Buy one, get one for $1. Want a sausage biscuit and hash browns? That's cool too. Choose more of what you love. Buy one, get one for $1 at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
Cured, you know, I could tell, you got a little blush on the cheeks there. You're looking great.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Luscious Jules in the chat room calls you Fedorable. The Fedorable
yes,
John Hudson.
Quite a nickname, huh?
Oh, yeah. All right. Been a big UAP news day up here in Canada, my friend.
Yeah, I know, and I've been trying really hard. I've been trying really hard to get as excited as you are, because I understand why you're excited, and I think you're in full right to be excited. But I must admit, I'm struggling a little bit. I do apologize.
Well, you know what, though? Dude, up here it has been so hard to get anything out of the nation's capital with the phrase UFO or the phrase UAP. And to finally have it happen, and to know that 2 years of hard work for me, and I'm sounding selfish here, but there were other people involved, like Daniel Otis, but for me, 2 years investment into this story to finally come out, it's awesome.
So you may have done this before, so you may not want to do it again, but I would ask a favor. Would you mind just like giving me like a 30-second recap of exactly what went on over the last 2 years that you believe led up to this?
Sure.
That you were involved in, you know?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. 2 years ago, I was contacted by someone in Ottawa who was listening to the show, and they had an interest in UAPs, and if I knew anything about Canada's role in this. And we started talking. We built a trust with each other, and over time, I was able to ask questions. I never will give up the source, ever, but it all culminated today when Member of Parliament Larry Maguire from Manitoba sat in front of the National Committee of Natural Resources and basically asked a UAP question, saying that he has heard of 3 reports of UAPs or drones hovering over nuclear energy facilities here in Canada, because we don't have nuclear weapons here. We don't. We're nuclear weapon free. All right. I know you guys got like 6,000 missiles, can destroy the Earth 28 times over, but up here we just don't need them because you got enough down there. We'll let you waste your money on them. Right.
That helps you sleep at night. Go right ahead, Dave.
It totally does. Totally does. But the idea was, over time we have talked, we've exchanged information, and about 8 months ago, as I was searching for somebody to help me with this story, I got in touch with Daniel Otis. And part of that trade with Daniel and I helping each other out was that I would introduce him to my sources in Ottawa. And Daniel posted a video today of Larry Maguire asking about the UAPs and wanting a report on it, which is huge. And then I followed up because I talked to my sources right after with my excitement that I was having, and we were having a good laugh and everything along those lines. And I said, don't forget to scratch my hand too. And my sources told me today that, the SCU SCU members from Canada, along with Hal Puthoff, have met with members of Parliament in Ottawa via Zoom meeting just a few weeks ago.
Including Puthoff?
Including Hal Puthoff.
Wow.
So, my excitement is when a story finally comes together. This is the excitement of journalism. This is when it's all worth it. This moment right now. And, it's very nice to be able to see that those 3 little letters, UAP, come out of a politician's mouth in Canada, because we've been trying so hard, John, to get it done.
Can I ask one question, Dave?
Please.
If the whole thing had played out exactly how it did, but instead all the language had been using, it was all UAP, right? Were you okay with that?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm very fine.
I know you're not a big fan of that term, so that's why I'm curious, yeah.
No. I hate the term UAP. Of course I do.
Yeah, no, I was just surprised, yeah.
Well, the idea, though, that it finally came through, we're pretty happy over that. Because it's hard to break a story. It's very hard, especially with so many different acronyms and news agencies and social media. So, it's very hard.
So, the individual who exposed themselves on the floor to ask this question. What is in it for them to be doing this?
Curiosity.
Oh, okay. That's far out, man.
The idea,
that's totally cool.
The idea
cool.
The idea that they want to know if this is happening in Canadian airspace. Why are we so secretive about it? What are we not seeing? What are we not reporting? Canada, as I stated with Victor, and Victor agreed, has a very long history, John, where people still take the government at their word. Okay, people's I mean, we haven't graduated up to hating government. We're almost there. Trust me, we're almost there.
You're working on it, man.
Yeah, we are working hard on that. Okay, we are. And we can thank the current Prime Minister for that over a number of years. I'm not going to get into that. But nonetheless, the fact that it was actually brought up is massive.
So if you could paint for me like what would you consider to be like just maybe like two likely reasonably likely outcomes of this, and maybe comment on which one you'd like to see more.
Sure. My likely, as my prediction earlier, if everybody here who's listening to this show reads the newspapers or that watches the television news mainstream in Canada, this story will not make the news. Our media up here is too concentrating on what's happening in the Ukraine, what is happening around the world. And
within your own politics.
Well,
right?
within our own politics, that's calmed down now. But if it's not COVID or if it's not Ukraine right now, and if it's not something to do with wokeism, it will not make the air. And I would be surprised if any major newspaper actually jumps on how big this story is. That is how ignorant our media has become at proper journalism. And I'm not just saying this because it's UFO, and I'm a UFO wingnut, and so are all of our listeners. Well, the majority of them. Okay, I'm saying this as a national interest story that the topic of UFOs has actually come up in Canadian Parliament. That is massive. And the public has a right to know, even if they don't believe in the subject, John, they have a right to know why our politicians are talking about this.
Oh, well, look, I mean, if you want to go out on a statistical limb and assume that like the rest of the world is somehow devoid of any of these experiences, you have to at least assume that the three countries sharing a continent, perhaps, because I have my doubts that anyone's going to pay attention to political borders that only appear on maps, right? So to assume that the Mexican government and the Canadian government have not had at least a factor of the activity that the U.S. has would just be insane. And so then you have to ask, what's been going on? Have you guys all just been handing it over, or are you doing your own program? Either way, as Mexicans or as Canadians, you might want to know that,
Well, absolutely. This isn't a U.S. problem. This is a world problem. We don't know if the aliens are here for the good, the bad, or the ugly. We don't know. We do not know. We can assume where they come from. And I'm still on the assumption that they come from outer space. I am in that assumption. All right? Or a different time.
If you don't want me asking real quick,
yeah.
Along with that assumption, is your current assumption involve multiple parties?
Define that.
Many, many different groups coming or interacting.
Oh, I
meaning
think
that some could be terrestrial, some could be from another galaxy, some could be from interdimensional. That basically all possibilities could be simultaneous. Or do you believe it's a very finite number of groups that are making contact?
I think there are a number of species that have come here. I mean, dude, we are like the Kmart blue light special. And when they see the blue light linking way up 1 billion miles into the stars, they're going to get excited. And why not come check it out? I mean, let's face it, our radio waves have blasted all across the solar system. We don't know how far they've traveled yet.
Well, and if you believe, the presentation by our friend Ramirez, technically, some kid's ant farm just got nukes, and the kids are really curious what those ants are doing, right?
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
that's exactly it. I mean, why not? We are the greatest reality television show in the universe. We really are. We got everything. We got sex, we got blood, we got war, we got sports, we got concerts, we got everything.
And even those of us that live here repeatedly comment that reality is far, far stranger than fiction. And
you got
this
that
is
right.
So true. All you got to do is travel the world a little bit, and you will see it fast.
You know what I want as a present for helping break this story? I want Geraldo Rivera's mustache framed and put on my wall. I've wanted.
Wow.
That's a 35-year wish. That's what I want. That's what I want.
That was not the direction. Wow.
Yeah, I want that mustache. Oh, he's so horrible. He's so horrible.
I got to say, Dave, I think in light of the obscurity of your request, there's actually a chance you might get it.
Oh,
I wouldn't give up hope.
Oh man,
I wouldn't give up hope.
If I could grow a lip blade like that, imagine how much more ahead of the game I would be right now. Just saying.
Well, let's just hope you have better luck. You have better luck showing people things than he did with that. What was it? Al Capone's vault? Was it?
Vault, yeah.
Oh, that was bad.
That was horrible. So 1 hour.
So
do you remember the hype up to that? Remember the hype?
How does that happen?
Oh man, how do you blow that one? How do you blow that one? Only Geraldo's mustache could blow that one.
And he survived, kind of.
Barely.
Okay.
Well, let me take control here because we only have about 25 seconds. We are going to continue with the unbiased UFO report, and we're going to continue with what happened today out of Canada and Ottawa, the capital, where MP Larry Maguire talked about UAPs for the first time in a public setting. And we're also going to get into some changes with UAPX and other stuff, maybe some Gary Nolan news as well, because we all know that the fedora-wearing John Hudson has a science crush on Dr. Gary Nolan. It's true. It's very true. I'm just jealous of Gary Nolan after he took a picture with Katy Perry. Oh, Katy. Katy, please listen to this show. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. We're clear.
One thing I will say though is I ended up going to a Katy Perry concert once because the job I used to have at one point, I got free tickets to all kinds of crazy things and took my wife and I didn't really want to go. I mean, I liked her, but I'm always worried about live performances. And she was actually really good. I was surprised.
I would totally go to a Katy Perry concert.
It was good.
I have such a crush on her.
You know what the best part was? That Lego movie? And they had that earworm song, Everything is Awesome?
No.
That was actually written by a real band. And they opened for Katy Perry. So I got to see Everything is Awesome performed live on stage. It was truly bizarre. Truly bizarre. I was actually born in Tucson, Jim. Glad I don't live there anymore.
Dirty Filth is packing up for the night. He is going to watch some Law and Order. Holy cow.
That song is so soothing.
Holy cow, Dirty Filth. What's next? Reruns of Grey's Anatomy? Actually, I can't say that. I like Grey's Anatomy. They change characters too quick, though.
Never seen it. Can't say.
Mm-hmm. Teresa, one day you and I will attend a Justin Bieber, Katy Perry concert together. I'll leave before Bieber.
Hey, I'm gonna tell a really short Jim Goodall story since he's here, just to point out to you guys what a nice dude this guy is, like, just in general, having nothing to do with anything we're talking about in specific. I actually met Jim coincidentally on Quora, of all places, because of a SR71 thread that I think I commented in, and we ended up just quick chat, and like, turns out we grew up in the same town, and so
oh wow,
I said, like, hey, next time you're out, we should grab lunch, and we can just roam around and show each other the different haunts we had, because we had a lot of his memories are places I also went to as a kid, and just he reached out to me, so gave me his phone number. I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet because it's the whole virus happened and everything, but
yeah.
We just wanted to point out that this had nothing to do with UFOs, had nothing, the garage, you guys didn't have to be there, you didn't have to be there. Yeah. He was still like the nicest, friendliest, outward, like, just cool human that you can imagine. So
Jim Goodall is truly one of the best people I have ever met in this field. And, I cannot say enough good things about him. And he is I know it's politically incorrect to say this today, but he's a real man's man. He is a stand-up character. He's from the Wild West, and he is somebody who lived that way for a long time, and he lives by the law.
Look, we've embarrassed Jim so much he's running away.
I know. I just think that Jim Goodall is a fantastic human being, and goddamn, what an honor to be able to not only interview him but call him a friend. And I just,
yep. No,
he's one of the
good
ones.
True, because what you find is that there are people in this field that you'll get along really well with because you have a shared interest, and they're really cool people as long as you share that interest. And then there are other people that are that genuine on all levels, and Jim's one of those.
Yes,
it's nice to see in a human.
Jim is amazing, and if you're able to get to our Vegas party, April 22nd to 24th, John,
yes,
you'll get to meet him.
Get a bloody job. Yes,
you'll get to meet him, and we'll make that happen. You won't leave his
nice.
You won't leave his side, guaranteed.
Yeah. If I can find a job in time and have money to go, I'm going to go. Yeah. I really want to go.
You should start an OnlyFans page for that chin hair. You and John Music, you can show the tight chin hair, and he can show his beautiful hair and beard combination. Fuck, does he have a nice hair and beard combination? Let's see if we could zoom in here. I don't know if you guys could see that properly, but his beard is tight, and it just leads right up to the sides. That's so nice. So nice. It is. All right.
I know.
We got 30 seconds. Thank you to Smithy, Donna, Allison, Gary, Todd, Ed, Thomas, Obi, Abe, Jeffrey, Lori, Snakes, and Patrick for the amazing super chats tonight. We really do appreciate it. Thank you to all the veterans out there tuning us in. We love you. You always have a safe place here in our chat room. Let's rock the final half hour right now. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Appreciate you tuning us on in. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, do us a favor, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the unbiased UFO report as we are continuing our conversation about the UAP news out of Canada tonight. John, welcome back.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. John, I'm curious, considering the relationship between Canada and the United States goes well beyond the military, it goes well beyond UFOs. We're so tied together. Do you think that the fact that this has opened up now the conversation and the dialogue in Canada, that it will make any sort of news or waves within the United States?
I don't think it'll make any public waves. I think what you will get is you will get a whole rash of people in the U.S. Calling up, texting and messaging their friends over in Canada and going, now you get to deal with it. I guarantee there's a ton of that going on. Because you're right. I mean, there's so much. I mean, people don't realize how much cross-pollination there is. I do not believe that there are, let me think about this before I say this. With the exception of like wholly owned countries like Quebec, I don't think there are any other countries around that are adjacent to each other that are as close and intertwined as the U.S. and Canada is. I mean, you look at the way NORAD has been created. You look at, I mean, just look at signals intelligence. Forget everything else. Just look at signals intelligence. Just look at that group, right, or those groups. Man, the camaraderie and the respect is outstanding. I mean, just outstanding. And this happens at so many levels, at so many different places. And honestly, you would have a tremendous amount of trouble separating the two of us if you tried.
Very true. Very true. And I think, you know what, in messaging with Lou Elizondo today, and how proud he was that Larry McGuire came out, as well as talking to Paul Kingsbury today from the board of the SCU, where he was saying he was absolutely, as a Canadian, very pleased with Larry McGuire talking about the UAP subject and finally making it public. I think this opens up a number of cool
respectable doors. Sorry, go ahead. No, please.
No, please. I was just finishing.
I was going to say, and doing just a really nice. I don't know. This may sound silly to people, but I really crave and I so enjoy hearing the UAP topic discussed in the plain banana or public tones of any kind of government language, right? I mean, like, you want it like at that boring level almost, right? And that's exactly what he gave us. He gave us just at the rubber, just, boom, what's going on? This is why it's important. Do something about it, right? And it was nice. It was good and clean.
All right, let's move on here because there are a couple other big stories that have happened. Number one, out of UAPX, former Spaced Out Sundays host Michael W. Hall, a.k.a. the Paranormal Lawyer, a nickname that I gave him, has been fired from UAPX. And this comes as a shock to many of us within the community because Michael W. Hall is such a likable guy, and he is very knowledgeable. He's very smart. He has allowed numerous people within the community to free legal advice. He's our lawyer here. I do have to disclose that. He is our continuing to be our lawyer here for Spaced Out Radio.
It was made clear that they actually terminated him personally. They did not terminate the role.
They removed him from their board.
Okay.
Right. Now, the story that I heard about this, and I'll thank Thomas Fessler and Disclosure Tonight because that's where I found out about it. They were saying that allegedly Michael W. Hall had potentially broken his NDA. As a lawyer, I don't see that happening. And knowing Michael personally, I don't see that happening. But then again, I wasn't there. I don't know.
It would be so bizarrely out of character but anyway, yeah.
I mean, if anybody knows the law, it's a lawyer. And Michael's been a practicing lawyer for 40 plus years. I'm pretty sure he's going to know what he can and cannot say.
He's one of those humans that was born a lawyer. Like, he didn't have a choice. He was going to become a lawyer, whether he liked it or not.
He actually went to college for broadcast journalism. And
I don't doubt it. I'm sure he tried very hard not to be a lawyer.
He did. But the fact that, what's going to be interesting here is Gary Voorhees has got rid of some very, very stalwart people recently, and there seems to be, and I'm not trying to make drama here, but if you lose, look, there's always turnover. When it comes to volunteers, there's always turnover. Okay, and everybody's a volunteer on that right now. But I mean, the idea behind it is, there's a lot of big public, how can we put it, names from Dave Altman to others.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Dave. Like, one of the things that you learn doing startups is that you're really tempted to focus on grabbing major league players, and what you quickly learn is that a team that works well together is more important and more valuable than a star player that not only doesn't coalesce with the group, but their existence disrupts the group, right? And so I've been in situations where, we've had to, offshoot, or even I've been in that situation where it just, it happens, right? I mean, it just happens where things don't click. And a lot of times it's more about personality and culture than it is about skill sets.
Well, I mean, the idea that they're allegedly so close to releasing their information and their documentary, it just amazes me that at this critical juncture in time that they would make another change. Now, we don't know what is going on around the inside of Gary Voorhees, but, I mean, if you look at UAPX, okay.
But I mean, there was that's, I mean, because I gotta tell you, like, I was excited about UAPX as anyone else until I talked to him. And when I was on his show and when he was doing Sunday Night with Hugo, and he brought up the fact that they had actually gotten results from whale calls, I was absolutely stunned. Like, stunned that he was able to tell me that, and he was able to say it on the air. I was stunned, and all I did was just trust. He's a lawyer. He must know what he's doing. He obviously knows what he's doing. He's not going to say it if he can't say it. He can say it. But I was thinking to myself, how did he say that? How could you tell people that? And the thing is that we don't know if there were other other instances like that, but I doubt it because. I mean, lawyers are lawyers by nature, and so to me, it seems more likely that it was just just a lack of team of team building.
Well, you know what? Like I said, I mean, there are a number of people who have kind of moved on regarding this. It started with apparently there was a confrontation between Gary Voorhees and agent and producer Dave Altman. Whatever happened there, happened.
Well, yeah, no. If they get rid of a few more people, they can get a whole nother team. We could do like a Megadeth from like a Metallica thing. That'd be fun.
Ooh. That would be very interesting.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be very interesting.
Be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dude, Altman as Mustaine. Totally.
Oh, Dave Altman is
Totally see that.
Totally
see
Dave
that.
Mustaine. He's totally Dave Mustaine. Oh, my goodness. All right, finally tonight, Gary Nolan has been doing a lot of Twitter lives recently.
Yeah, and this one just, honestly, I don't know how many he's done, and this one caught me off guard. It was only because a kind friend of mine reached out to me on Saturday and with a link and said, "Hey, this is happening right now." And so luckily I happened to be around. I missed a large portion of it, but I was able to jump into it, and I was shocked. Gary Nolan comes off as being very, comfortable in his own skin and easy to talk to in his interviews and so forth. But, you never know how people are going to be in a forum where, where questions aren't screened, and, it was cool. It was really cool. It was very honest. It was very just down to earth. And, there was some really, what I found very interesting questions that we actually got answers from. I mean, I don't know if you've had Bruce Fenton on the show, but Bruce has been a friend of mine for a long time and really good researcher. He came up with a really good question. He basically asked, if people who were having these contact experiences and who had this kind of this kind of data. Was there any any correlation between that and people being on the spectrum, right? And because basically, because the thing is that one of the most bizarre things that Gary Nolan discovered is that couples tend to have this, which means there's selection for it, which means that we can sense it in each other in some sort of way, which is really weird, right? This stuff just gets, what Gary Nolan's doing, it's really amazing work. I mean, he's just a brilliant guy and he's doing some amazing stuff.
Why do you think he's decided recently to step into the open public about this, John? Because for so long he was quite quiet. He liked being on the outside looking in, and it seems like recently he's really delved deep into public ufology.
Well, I think that ultimately he, that whole DNA thing he went through with that little baby alien thing. I think that got him hooked. I think it did. I think he really enjoyed it, and I think he enjoyed working with the community more than he expected to. And I think that to a certain degree, it's kind of hard to put a finger on exactly how much money that boy has made in some of his ventures. And so, it might just be that he's, just reached a point where he's, comfortable enough and stable enough. And his status at Stanford, oh man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he can do no harm. So it might just be because he's certainly smart enough and aware enough to know that sometimes there are people that have to do things not because they want to, but because they're in a role where they can. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if Gary Nolan's doing it for partly that reason, because he recognizes that he's someone who can do it. And I think his relationship with Jacques Vallée has had a huge impact as well.
I think so. John, another great unbiased UFO report. We will
Thank you,
talk
sir.
to you.
Congratulations on this news, Dave. I know
Thank
you've
you.
been working for a long time, so yeah, no, awesome stuff, man. Good stuff.
Thank you. Let's get to Shirky Poo's news.
Yep.
All right. Let's get to it. Shirky Poo's news. The Felicity Ace, the cargo ship carrying cars and SUVs for brands like Audi, Porsche, Bentley, and Lamborghini, has now sunk after catching fire back on February 16th and its crew abandoning ship. The large burned-out ship was being towed back to a safe port when it sank yesterday. Yep, apparently there is now a $400,000 Lamborghini Aventador down at the bottom of the ocean, and there are fewer than 800 that are built every year, so now there's 799. However, imagine what that numbered car will cost when they salvage it. Oh yeah, that's the one you want to go to the Barrett auction and get. By the way, the estimate for all of the vehicles that were lost in that, about 4,000 of them, about $335 million, Volkswagen has said the damage will be covered by insurance. Have you ever seen a Tasmanian tiger? Unless you're about 100 years old, there's a good chance that you haven't, because allegedly this animal has been extinct since 1936. Still, there is the occasional Australian that claims to have seen the long-dead creature prowling the wilds. Well, the future may actually see them again. The Thylacine Integrated Genetic Restoration Research Lab at the University of Melbourne is planning to pull a biblical stunt. Researchers from the lab intend to resurrect the Tasmanian tiger. Their plan may just be possible for two reasons. The first is a generous $3.6 million philanthropic donation the university got that allowed them to set up the lab. The second reason is the Tasmanian tiger went extinct relatively recently. And, as such, there are still preserved specimens with enough genetic material for researchers to work with and clone them. I still think there's some in the wild. I know I'm in the minority here, but there's been a couple of real convincing videos out there that have made headline news. Maybe there's like 10, maybe 20, but I still think they're out there. I hope so. It's a beautiful creature. Beautiful. A man is attempting to sell a painting he claims is cursed on eBay for just $50, claims it's ruined his life. Of course, that's probably not the greatest sales pitch you've ever heard, but that doesn't mean that some strange person won't go out there and snap it up. Dan Smith, not his real name, called himself a collector of weird things, says he purchased the painting at a flea market from a woman who even warned him that the painting was bad news. Failing to heed her warning, he bought it anyways. Honestly, it's an ugly painting of a little girl in a pink dress holding a cave woman type doll. I don't really know. It's not the prettiest thing. Anyways, Dan regards his choice as an ultimately bad decision, claims the painting has detrimental effects on his life, says the picture of the two terrifying dolls originally reminded him of rebirth, but now he believes it only represents the end of things. If that's not selling it, perhaps eBay's description might. Says, beware, cursed vintage painting dolls, art creepy, eerie warning, 1967. The woman at the flea market warned me before buying this, and I will warn you, no good can come from this painting. I don't think much of it at the time and just assumed she was just one of those oddball dealers hawking their wares for cheap. As for the painting, it looked adorable, with two innocent-seeming dolls portrayed in it, but she was right. Don't be deceived. Now, he doesn't go on to say what actually happened to him. Oh, here it is. Sorry. He was hit by sickness, loneliness, sleeplessness, and uneasiness. Well, that's called COVID. That's called COVID. Okay? I don't know if it's the painting or not. This guy's got to musk up a bit. Put up some new cologne. Go outside. Take your mask off. You know, hit one of the pubs. There's only about 13,000 of them in London alone. I think it's mandatory. Every corner has a pub down there. Either way, freaks him out. Doesn't want it. Let's move on. It would seem the tables have been turned on the Tinder swindler, Shimon Hayut, after he himself was scammed out of $6,664 by a woman who claimed her boyfriend worked for Facebook and Instagram's parent company, Meta. According to a report since confirmed by LAD Bible, The woman reached out via Hayut's Instagram DMs and said that her boyfriend could get him and his girlfriend verified on the platform. Hayut, whose scams under the name Simon Leviev were the subject of a huge Netflix documentary series, agreed to a FaceTime call with the boyfriend, whom TMZ now reports seemed to be in a busy office space at the time. It all must have seemed convincing enough to Hayut, who you would think would recognize an elaborate scam once he saw one, but nope, paid the money via PayPal and didn't get his blue verification checkmark. So now he's mad that the swindler got scammed. How do you figure that? My goodness. By the way, in Brazil, following rules that he found on Google, a 9-year-old boy boarded a plane without a ticket, travel documents, or luggage, snuck in on the plane, traveling 2,500 kilometers across country before he was found. 9-year-old Emmanuel Marquez de Oliveira was reported missing by his parents in the city of Manas. Yep, but they found him way out there. He just wanted to go for a plane ride. Good kid. Good kid. Solved the problem. Smart kid. Thank you to everybody participating in tonight's show, including Victor Viggiani, for an amazing show about Canadian UFOs. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Face Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.